enthusiastic group we have here today. Proof that a little cheap wine goes a long way, right? I'm hoping Deanna and crew have reminded those who either forgot or whose dog ate the checkbook or the credit card that ESLA dues are not a bicentennial thing, that we actually try to collect those every year. Tonight, we're back in this pavilion. We had our first event up at the Dam Shop in April. The pavilion was not available then. And the Dam Shop is a big supporter this year. If you were there, you saw a really good program. And they have, the owners of the marina have included a ESLA membership for all their slip holders, which is a big boost for us. So patronize them if you can. Make sure that our June 23rd general membership meeting is on your calendar. Same time, same place. So social time at 5. We'll get the meeting started at 5:30, 5:45. And it's going to be similar to last year's, where we're going to be a number of ESLA folks, and probably Samantha, our lake biologist, will be talking about projects that we have underway. So that should be an interesting time. There's some breaking news too on our final event of the season. I think we've got some agreement. One of the issues of great concern to so many of you is what some of you call brown crud, others call golden, like it's pretty, it's not. Brown algae, and we're working on bringing in Jan Stevenson for that meeting. Tentatively, that would be on September 22nd, which is a Friday, but it'll be based a little bit on Jan's availability, and we'll have at least one other expert here to talk about GBA. George, remind us when the August meeting, what date that is?
My partner here, Kim Malnish, she's got the place reserved. Leslie Myers, from the operator of dams in Antrim County, is going to be presenting, and she will provide us with some more information on the studies they are doing for us and other lake associations on the chain of lakes and flooding, etc.
Yeah, I don't remember if it's a Thursday or Friday. We had an alternate. It's the last Thursday or the last Friday in July. But certainly
And that one's the last one in August. Yeah, and then in July we will have Heather Hettinger, the DNR's top biologist, fisheries biologist for Northwest Michigan, talking about the results of the netting that was done last summer, what looks good, what looks not so good, all that sort of good stuff. Tonight, we're really fortunate to have as our featured speaker, Glenn Chown, a superstar in the world of land conservancies, executive director of the Grand Traverse Land Conservancy. ESLA is soon retiring from ESLA. He is not retiring from the world, however. He's on to other projects. Past president and board member Bob Kingon, who's been on our board for 25 years, will be introducing Glenn a little more formally. We'll get a chance to do more of that next month, maybe pull a prank or two on Bob. Remarkably, tonight, we have 3 local nonprofits joining to celebrate some success stories. ESLA, the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, and Rotary of Elk Rapids. You will see some invaders from Rotary who are wearing their shirts and other. That's our official photographer right there. He will make you smile. And more momentarily, you will learn our big secret tonight. And with that, I am pleased to introduce Steve Francis, who brings the worlds of ESLA, where he is a board member, and Rotary, where he is acting president, together. Steve.
Well, thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone who's here tonight. It's so exciting to see folks. The folks that I told to get here at 4:30, it was a mistake. I did not intend for you to help set up chairs, but if you did help set up chairs, that's wonderful. And for all the people who were happy to see me, but I could tell they were a little reserved because they were thinking, is this guy asking for money again? The answer is no, but it will happen again. So that's going to happen. The thing which I'm just thrilled about tonight, and first, as Bob said, I appreciate ESLA working with us tonight, the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, and for teaming up to help recognize a distinguished citizen and public servant tonight from Milton Township. I'll tell you a few things about him. Tonight's honoree grew up in Milton Township, graduated from Elk Rapids High School in 1968 and MSU in 1972. I'll pause so you can figure out how old he is now. His service has been exceptional both in years and accomplishments. His name is Lon Bargy, who is sitting there in back, and he's eventually going to come up here. And again, Lon, I'm so happy to be able to do this tonight. Wendell Berry is one of the nation's leading scholars on the subject of community and the land ethic. And he wrote an article or a chapter about boomers and stickers. And I don't know if you've ever read that. I love Wendell Berry, but boomers are nomads. They're not attached to any place. They move from place to place, and they look for that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Stickers, on the other hand, they have a love of place. They're rooted there. The land and the community are important to them, and they stick around to do their part. The stickers build community, and I really think that that's true. Lon Bargy, from everything I can tell, is a sticker, and that's he may be a boomer too, but that's just chronologically. He is a sticker. So a couple of things that tell me he's a sticker because he's been here for a while. He was a Milton Township firefighter for 33 years. Yeah, Milton Township supervisor for 37 years. I guess he left there in 2022. Well-deserved rest. As I said, this qualifies numerically as a sticker, but Berry required something more than just hanging around. He actually required working to improve the land and the community. So let's see if Lon continues to qualify. I know Lon loves the land because we have picked his cherries for years and used it to make Elk Lake cherry wine. And we actually have a bottle here that was made from Lon's cherries. You will see we did not bring enough for everyone. So Lon, you get to take this home unopened, and we hope you and your family will enjoy it. Lon has done a lot as a lot of the things that a common supervisor will do, township supervisor. They have work that they've got to do. And that work includes building roads, buildings, cemeteries, policing, zoning. But he also took a lot of uncommon initiatives, things that every supervisor doesn't do. And so let me tell you what some of those uncommon initiatives are. And I didn't know these myself. These are wonderful. The construction of the Milton Township office, which you've probably all seen at one time or another. And adjoining that is the 49-acre Milton Township Sports Park. Great opportunity for the young people to get out there and play sports. Close by, you'll find the Milton Township Recycling Center. Lon organizes he organized two recycling days a year. He purchased land and development for the Keewaydin waterfront on Elk Lake. And that's part of the kayak trail. It's got universal access. It is a wonderful addition. Lon has worked with the Grand Traverse Land Conservancy to purchase and develop Maplehurst Natural Area. Beautiful. If you haven't been there, go there. And when you're there, think Lon and the work that he did in that. He constructed a cell tower. Well, he didn't construct himself. He led the construction of a cell tower in Kuwait to better serve the community's internet needs and the construction of and equipping of the South End Fire Barn number 2. Now, I know there are a lot of other things that he has done, but you know, these are some of the great high points of it. So moving on to Rotary's part of this. Almost 120 years ago, a fellow named Paul Harris founded Rotary, and the ideal was service above self, which is why I don't mind my fellow Rotarians having to come early to help set up chairs. Right? It's service above self, guys. Don't get mad at me. And the fact is, the world is a much better place for Paul Harris and for Rotary. And Rotary has a special recognition, and that's the Paul Harris Fellowship. And it's made up of those who best represent the culture of service above self. And Lon has been selected by the Rotary Club of Elk Rapids to receive the award tonight because he does exemplify service above self. Lon, we intend this also to recognize your parents, Calvin and Josephine, who were public servants. They care for the community just like you. And also to encourage your family, Kevin and everyone else, to continue this tradition of service in your family because it's really important in the years ahead. I'm more than pleased to act on behalf of the Rotary Club of Elk Rapids and thank Lon for his dedication and presenting a certificate and medallion certifying him as a Paul Harris Fellow. Now, Lon, you do have to come up. Like it or not. There is the medallion for you. Wear it proudly. You can pass on the ethic of service before self to your offspring. You cannot pass that on them. They have to earn it themselves. And so let me read here what the citation for the Paul Harris Fellow says. In appreciation of tangible and significant assistance given for the furtherance of better understanding and friendly relations among peoples of the world and local as well. And so, Lon, you're going to get this. You've got that. Now, would you like to introduce your family? I don't think everyone knows them.
And you can say a few words, too.
Well, our oldest, Jim, and his wife, Denise. She's and my son, Kevin, and my grandson, Wyatt.
Congratulations again. Well deserved. Well deserved. So let me give you the certificate, all right? And I'll give you the Elk Lake cherry wine made with Bargy cherries. Congratulations. Should Lon stay up there?
Yes, you should stay.
You tried to steal the turkey.
That's great.
Okay, actually, I'm gonna take these things away from you. I'm gonna pass off this. Take this back.
Stay right here. With all the former presidents of ESLA, come up to the front, please. While they're coming up here, current president, I want you to know that I've worked with Lon for the last 15 years.
Former president.
And it's himself. And you wonder how he did all those things that he did as he related. And I'll tell you one thing is that he knows everybody in Milton Township. It's just fun. Number two is he is one of the most persuasive people I've met. And that ability is based upon mutual respect and honesty. And that's done so much for the citizens of Milton Township. The former presidents, the big guy in the end here, Dean Ginther, Gary Chenoweth, Ruth Bay, Bob Gamble, I guess that's it. Step over here, Lon. And we're going to present you with the very first ESLA President's Award. I'll read the inscription to you folks. Recognizing his leadership and implementation of policies protecting and preserving the quality of water in Elk Lake, Lake Stiegamog, Torch River watershed, we, current and past presidents of the Elk Stiegamog Lakes Association, named Lon Bargy as the recipient of ESLA's first President's Award. Mr. Bargy set a high bar in 37 years as supervisor and other Milton Township roles. Under his leadership, the township created and implemented model ordinances related to septic inspections and preserving natural shorelines, among others. His personal initiative led to the effective partnerships with other organizations that benefited residents and riparians in Milton Township, as well as riparians and visitors to our entire ESLA watershed. In these times of fraught leadership, Mr. Bargy is a shining example of the best of public service.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce to you Glenn Chong. Many of you know him. Also a man of very persuasive ability. Glenn is the founding executive director of the Grand Traverse Regional Land Conservancy, and that dates back to 1991. During that time, they have preserved over 44,000 acres of land and over 140 miles of shoreline, protected them for us forever. Glenn. Well, thank you. You all hear me?
Here comes our tech guy.
Well, around the office and around my home, they complain about the volume of my voice. 'Cause I grew up in a family of 6 kids with 4 brothers and a pretty loud sister. She had to keep up with 5 brothers. So I'm learning to tone my voice down, but that's not easy. But I want to thank you all for inviting me to be here. It's my honor and great privilege, particularly to follow this incredible and well-deserving set of awards to Lon Bargy, who is someone I've worked with for several decades in the trenches of negotiating deals and working with adjoining farmers and raising a substantial amount of money to save the things that we love about Northern Michigan. So, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but the Grand Traverse Conservancy serves 5 counties. And we work with many, many local units of government, particularly on Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund projects, because conservancies are private nonprofit organizations, and we do not qualify to receive acquisition grants from the Natural Resources Trust Fund. So we work with partners, our local municipalities, counties, townships, cities, villages, and without a doubt, our best relationship and perhaps most productive relationship, and I'm going to tell you about some of these projects in a few minutes, is with Milton Township, with the Parks and Rec Commission that Bob has headed up, most importantly with the township board. It's a strong township board. They're all leaders. But at the top of that heap over these decades has been Lon Bargy, and I'm very grateful, not only for his leadership, for his sound advice, because we ran into a few thorny things over the years, didn't we, Lon? And he's a problem solver, and he's practical, and he's trusted by the community, particularly the ag community, which is really important. But he's also a great friend. So again, let's give Lon another round of applause. So Grand Traverse Conservancy, for those who aren't familiar, was started in '91, as Bob mentioned, by our local Rotary Club in Traverse City and Rotary Charities. And the basic 2-second, you might wonder, well, why would a Rotary Club start a land conservancy? Well, Rotary was watching what Little Traverse Conservancy was doing up north, up in Petoskey and Charlevoix. And they liked the model of land conservation through private action, giving landowners incentives to do the right thing rather than ultimatums. And the concern in the Grand Traverse region was the area was growing rapidly back in the 90s. Concerns about downtown Traverse City at that time, because major businesses were moving. And so Rotary started the Conservancy to balance growth, Rotary is not anti-growth, but the idea was to balance growth with protecting the places that are most special in our region. To put it succinctly, to make sure we didn't kill the goose that laid the golden eggs, our beautiful farmland, our incredible lakes and streams, our high quality of life, all of these things. And they started a conservancy. Wasn't quite sure how it was going to go, particularly when they hired this guy when I was 29 years old. But I was working with Little Traverse, and they thought, well, let's give him a shot. So Rotary, one of the great things they did was they reached out to the other Rotary clubs. So I want to thank the Elk Rapids Rotary Club, because the Rotarians, once they get behind something, they really rally behind. And I didn't have to do a lot of explaining and convincing, because we had that imprimatur, that stamp of approval, that credibility that not only Traverse City Rotary provided, but Elk Rapids and Frankfort and really the whole Rotarian community. So I know there's a number of Rotarians in the audience. I just want to thank you for 32 years of great support. So what's our mission? Pretty simple: protecting significant natural, scenic, and farmlands, and advancing stewardship, and that's both land and water, now and for future generations. And there's another partner that I want to recognize, and you're going to see the importance in a minute here. And that's the Elk-Skegamont Lake Association. In fact, in preparing for this talk, I pulled out a newsletter from the fall of 1993. 30 years ago, folks. And it talks about the Conservancy in partnership with Elk-Skegamont Lake Association preserving 1,000 feet of shoreline on Elk Lake, where the former Camp Palestra was. A gift from Ed Graft and Esther Holm, two adjoining landowners. And who encouraged them to contact the Conservancy? ESLA, the Alpeskiegamog Lake Association. And then side by side is a story about Warren Goodell donating 7.2 acres with 900 feet of shoreline on the North Skiegamog, which was the beginning of a story that I'm going to tell you. So kudos to ESLA for being in the vanguard. And so what has the Conservancy accomplished in this 32-year period? I think Bob mentioned 44,000. Well, now we're up to almost 47,000. So we haven't slowed down. 153 miles of shoreline, many of it right here in the chain. And one thing I'm really proud of is 121 miles of trails and now 6 universally accessible trails. So people of all abilities, from the time you're in a stroller to the time you're 102 and everything in between. We now have 6 places where people of all abilities can get out and enjoy the beauty of our natural setting. So that's sort of the scorecard. And when Rotary hired me 32 years ago, they said, Glenn, your marching orders are hit the ground running. And I said, yes, sir. And we have never stopped. And I'm very proud of the success. I mean, we've always had great board leadership. We have 2 former board members, Royce Ragland, Wave Royce, who's served on our board for many years and is also a great friend, and Bob Van Drock. Where's Bob? In the back. A round of applause for our local board members. So I want to talk a little bit about Skiegamog, because Skiegamog is an amazing body of water. This is looking to the west out. You can see the Narrows. Here, I've got my pointer, so for those of you who are not familiar, as long as I don't hit the screen, right? So there's the Narrows over there, and the DNR platform that you go through Torch River to get to is there. Somewhere in here was where the famous trailer, the yellow trailer, yeah, it had to be, maybe that's why I wore a yellow shirt tonight, that galvanized Harry and June Janis back in 1972 to try to save the entire landscape around Lake Skiegamog. So that's really where it all began. And pay attention to this ridge, because I've got a story about that ridge in the ribbon of protection. So a little bit of history here. In fact, here's a timeline. So in 1972, Harry and June Janis began the effort to preserve what is now known as the Skiegamog Wildlife Area, which is this light green, which is 3,000 acres, I believe now, and about all contiguous, all there to preserve wildlife and to maintain the water quality that makes this, among other things, a renowned fishery. In fact, my first fishing experience was with Dick Kraut, and he taught my 3 sons how to catch fish right over here where the bald eagle nests. And that was about 25 years ago, or 20 years ago. They're not that old. So very special place, and I want to kind of work through this. Nature Conservancy took over the management of the property in the early years, but then transferred that to the Grand Traverse Conservancy, working with volunteers, people like Dave Hauser, many members of this ESLA organization, to maintain the trails and take care of the property. So thank you for that. And then Warren and Sue Goodell. Warren was one of our early board members representing the Chain of Lakes, donated 7 acres and 900 feet right here near their cabin where the Chippewa Trail ends and the Narrows begins there. And that was our first gift of land in the Chain of Lakes. So think about that. Chain of Lakes, the Conservancy now is pushing 10,000 acres of protected land in this Chain of Lakes that supplies 60% of the water to Grand Traverse Bay. The Boardman's only about 30%. Chain of Lakes is double that, coming right out through here. 180 billion gallons of water every year flow through the dam in Elk River here. So how important is the Chain of Lakes, not just for its own sake, but for the entire bay where the Traverse City region gets its drinking water in the East Bay there. So we've got that. Warren Goodell, a longtime ESLA member and supporter, donated that area. Then Vic Schuler. Remember Vic Lon? You wouldn't forget him. Yeah. Probably my toughest negotiation in my 32 years at the Conservancy. Because he kept changing the deal. Glenn, I've been thinking about it. These trees are worth a lot of money. I think, what are you going to do about that, Glenn? But Vic and I got to know each other. Of course, Vic's family goes back into the 1800s, one of the original homesteads in the area. So we added 30 acres and another 1,200 feet of shoreline with Vic, and that was a lot of fun working with Vic. Back in 1995, stewardship got transferred to the Conservancy in 98. And then in 2017, again, with a lot of support from a lot of people in this room, we purchased a conservation easement on the Copeland farm, which was the first farm, I'm told, in all of Kalkaska County. So this is one of the original homesteaders. And I remember talking to June Janis, bless her soul, up in heaven, about the Copelands. June's unfortunately no longer with us, but before she died, she said, Glenn, we've been talking to the Copelands since 1972. That was always envisioned to be the last parcel to be protected in this big sweep of the east end of the lake. And she said, boy, protecting that warms my heart. Because, and I said, June, sometimes it takes 30, 40, even 50 years. We are in a long-term play here. And this is an example of a long-term landscape and watershed preservation project. And it's really one of the most significant stories in the entire United States. Private land conservation really got started right here in Antrim County, not only with Skigmog, but with Grass River Natural Area. And in fact, the Michigan Nature Conservancy started around these projects back in the 70s. So we're carrying the torch. I'd like to say we're standing on the shoulders of giants. And then, of course, I want to talk about the ribbon of protection, which is these two big red parcels, Vic Schuler's daughter, Vicki, and Bill Weiss, longtime employee of ESLA that used to do all your water quality sampling, a watershed scientist. And Bill, of course, owned this large, almost 300-acre property. And Vicki owned 200 acres, which was the original part of the original Schuler farm. And about 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Bill Weiss agreed to sell his property, and Vicki agreed to put a conservation easement to sell one to the Conservancy so that the farm, that heritage that that beloved heritage that Vic and Betty passed on to her would never be developed. So we launched a multi-million-dollar fundraising campaign, and we called it a ribbon of protection to protect 500 additional acres to build on what Warren and Sue Goodell started, and Vic Schuler, to go from all the way from the North Skeegamock Preserve near the Narrows, all the way to Torch River, where Bill owned 1,700 feet. Incredible. And we weren't quite sure how we were going to raise all those monies, but it's a good story. It involves some of the people in this room. So we basically, it's longtime ESLA members, made some very significant gifts. People like Dick Kraut and the Norling family, stalwart supporters who, Jim Norling once told me, or maybe it was Dick Kraut, we were all taught the importance of this by Harry and June Janis. That's how much of an influence they had on them. But I'm very proud to show this slide with Marty and Val Katanch, their beloved dog, Tyler, an incredible hunting dog. And of course, Kate Pearson and her daughter, Sophie. Kate's our senior major gifts officer and very close family member with the Katanches. And this is a great story. So we still had a long ways to go to complete these deals, and we had deadlines. So the summer of 2019, Bob and Ruth Campbell hosted a gathering on their front deck and invited Marty and Val, their next door neighbors. And they looked across the lake at this big bridge. And we basically said, that's Bill Weiss's property there. That's Vicki Schuler's property there. If we don't save those two properties, someday you might be looking at a line of condos, Lakeview Estates, or something less creative than that. So, long story short, good fortune shined upon Marty and Val after a lot of hard work. And pandemic hit in March of 2020. And Marty and Val, in honor of their 50th wedding anniversary, called me up and basically closed out our fundraising campaign. And that is why the preserve is named the Torch River Nature Preserve, a Katanch family legacy. So how about a round of applause? for these two great people. Thank you. What a happy day that was in late March when we got that phone call. And the legacy continues because now we've been building trail on this property, and we already have 4 miles of sustainably designed trail. So if you haven't been to this preserve, check it out. How many of you have been on the preserve? On a scale of 1 to 10, how are the trails? Great, 11. Here's what they look like. You access it off Torch River Road, south of Miller Road, the intersection there. And there's some fantastic views. There's a couple of benches, and any time of the year, but my favorite time is in the fall. The fall colors are just spectacular. Of course, spring wildflowers as well. Moving on to another project, another Grand Traverse Conservancy Milton Township Partnership project. This, of course, is the Milton Township Beach in Quaden. 480 feet that we worked together to purchase. Negotiated that deal with Dean Bigelow, who had a couple of resort cabins on the property, and that was a fantastic negotiation, but we were able to secure funding from the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund for that acquisition, and a development grant, a recreational development grant that followed that. And not only does Lon get a lot of credit, but Bob and the Parks and Rec Commission, but also Liz Atkinson, the treasurer of Milton Township, fabulous partner. And who doesn't love loons? And when you hear the call of the loon, you know you're in northern Michigan, and you know you're in a special place. That ancient call that is so ethereal, and what an amazing bird. And loons are very sensitive to disturbance. And they are very interesting birds. They actually dive very deeply. They mate for life, among other things. And they're one of my favorite birds. So we've been working on loons for a long time, preserving them up on the north arm of Lake Bel Air. And in fact, we just signed a deal with the Gardner family to do, in addition to the Golden Day Loon Sanctuary, which stretches from the tip-top north end of the North Arm all the way over here to a property Debbie Stevens donated a couple years ago. And now we're acquiring this property in red, 28 acres with 600 feet. And the loons nest right here, and they do their nursery activities up here at the Loon Nursery that we partnered with the township up there to acquire. But look at this. This property, Marilyn Fisher protected. This property, the Kazat family protected through conservation easements. So we have now done, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, going on 10 different protection efforts, all around water quality, habitat quality, and of course, those beautiful loons. So the fundraising team told me we have raised $357,000 toward this acquisition. We have 220 to go with a deadline of the end of next year. So if you like loons, You want to give them a hand? Just get in touch with us. Another project I wanted to mention briefly that we're partnering again with Milton Township. This is a Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund project, is on Torch Lake. It's the proposed Torch Lake Natural Area. The county owns 100 feet that's restricted to no development. And joining that is a 300-foot parcel that has a single owner with an old cottage. And she is offering to sell it to the township for a low impact natural area. No motorized launches, nothing like that, just a place to preserve on that great, incredible lake. And so the township, with the assistance of the Conservancy, has applied for a grant to the Natural Resources Trust Fund for $1.9 million. And the landowner made a $600,000 donation to cover the local match. So the trust fund board will be voting on this in December. But if successful, Lon, this would be our third acquisition project following Maplehurst and the Quaden Beach property. So fingers crossed, we'll know in early December. We're hoping that we will have an early Christmas present for everyone who loves Northern Michigan. If we don't protect this, the property will be sold, the cottage will be torn down, and what's a very small, modest cottage will probably be replaced with a 5,000 square foot with lots of impervious surfaces and runoff, and you know the drill. And if we're going to protect this water quality and prevent more golden brown, actually, Bob, you don't call it golden brown. What do you call it? The algae. Golden crud. These are the kinds of places that we really do need to protect and preserve. Here's the location. Interestingly enough, it is right next to Maplehurst, which is the 390 acre gem that was a former camp and came up for sale was over 10 million for a while, but then the price kept dropping. And finally, it dropped to 2.9 million. And I think that's probably when I called Lon, and Lon called, or actually Liz Atkinson called me and said, Glenn, we really need to go for this. And I said, at that price, I think we can swing it. So we, again, the Conservancy and the township applied for a trust fund grant. This was about 8 years ago. And we were approved for a grant of nearly $2 million. And then the Conservancy raised the rest as local match, including some very fine people in this room. So together, the township and the Conservancy bought an entire lake. Think about that, how special that is. Here's what it looks like. Not familiar with it. Pretty special spot. Of course, it was a great place for kids to learn boating skills and sailing skills and fishing skills. And but it's also a great place for all kinds of recreation. And now it's open to the public. And in fact, we're working on a trail system. In fact, you folks are working on it because we've now built 5.4 miles of trail, all by volunteers. Work days, and also with some help with some trail building machinery. Compliments of Dean Crandall, a local builder. But these are first-class trails, And if you've never visited Maplehurst, now's a good time to check it out. And I want to thank all the volunteers in and around this region. Here's what the trail system looks like. Tremendous views, particularly in leaf off. But any time of the year, where the old main camp building is, you can see Torch Lake, you can see Elk Lake, you can see Grand Traverse Bay. You truly feel like you're on the top of the world. Had we not stepped in working with the township, this would have been a giant subdivision. Developers were looking at where they could put in the airstrip to fly in the private plane. And of course, that would have been where the old orchard was that the Velikits managed for many years. And it's just an exceptional property. And it has become one of the crown jewels of all of northern Michigan. And it's right a couple miles down the road from here. So how about a round of applause? And there's more stewardship work. 1,100 trees were planted through Conservation Resource Alliance's Wild Roots program. And then the Velikits and Cherry Key donated 400 oak trees and the equipment, and we planted those. And in fact, you can see us working with the Velikits and Cherry Key planting these in this photo. So how about a round of applause for Norm? Thank you, Norm. Oh, he's over here, sorry. I was looking for that blue Rotary shirt. Appreciate that. That's service above self. And that definitely meets the Rotary 4-way test. So thank you. Speaking of farmland and farmers, the Conservancy also focuses a great deal on farmland protection. Regionally, we protected about 12,500 acres of some of the best fruit-growing farmland in the world. And I'm not even exaggerating. The microclimate of Lake Michigan, the hills, these glacial till soils make growing. There's a reason they call us the cherry capital of the world. We truly are. And it's not just cherries, it's all kinds of fruit. So we have a special resource in agriculture here. And the human population on planet Earth is about 6 billion right now and going up. It's projected to be 9 billion by 2050. That's a lot of mouths to feed. So how important is this farmland for the food security of the United States of America, the greatest country in the world? And one of the reasons we're the greatest country in the world is because we have some of the best agricultural land in the world. Did you know that Michigan is the second most diverse agricultural state in the nation in terms of numbers of crops that we grow after California? And guess what? We have water. Try farming in the Central Valley these days. So we've got something precious that we really need to preserve. And the Conservancy actually owns a couple farms, and including this gem, Maple Bay, where I met Tom and Debbie McMullen for the first time. And this 570-acre farm was scheduled to have 540 homes. when the Rollert Reardon family decided to sell it, and Ken Cook was going to move back to Hillsdale. And the dairy farmer there who was leasing from them. And thankfully, their attorney contacted us and said the developer from Utah missed an option payment because they think we're a bunch of hicks up here in northern Michigan. And so he basically said, Glenn, if you're going to save this property, you better move fast. And it actually was a Rotarian, a guy named Jack Burns, who I called up and I said, Jack, you've known Dave Rollert forever because they were in the same bridge club, which means they were in the same drinking club. And Jack said, oh yeah. And Jack's a real estate appraiser and owned a hotel, and he's one of these guys that loves to make a deal. So I turned him loose on Dave Rollert, and long story short is he put a deal together. We purchased that entire property as a gateway project because our fear was if that farm collapses, then the pressures on the white farms and all the farms running north all the way to Elk Rapids, we were worried that there was going to be a big domino effect. So this was like the Alamo, the last stand. And to try to create a green corridor so that Elk Rapids, and of course Royce Ragland's who grew up on a farm, how do you feel when you hit that farm and see that view when you're coming out of the urban jungle of Traverse City? The sense of relief. Particularly that red barn. When my wife taught school for 3 years at Elk Rapids, Becky Chown, after we got married in '94, every day when she would come home, we were living way out on Old Mission, so it was a long drive. But she would report to me on every day about the paint horses that Ken Cook was raising, how the heck they got the cattle from one side of the road to the other. What nobody knew was there's a tunnel. She thought, man, these guys must be musicians to do that. But the funny thing is I talked to the farmer and he said, I never go down to the water. And I said, what? He said, I'm a dairy farmer, Glenn. I don't have time for that stuff. It's 4:30 in the morning. But I went down to the water for the first time, and half a mile of shoreline. Some of the most beautiful shoreline on Grand Traverse Bay. And since this time, we've also acquired the adjoining property owned by the Pulsifer family, another farm family. So this is now connected to the Tobacco State Game Area. So there is now 1.5 miles of shoreline, one of the finest coastal marsh systems, beautiful dunes, and we just upgraded the whole trail system to connect the county-owned Maple Bay with the state-owned Tobacco State Game Area. So again, put that on your hiking list. Fabulous place. Here's a nice little, so this, I'll close with this. This is actually Mitchell Creek, our newest preserve, Mitchell Creek Meadows, the Don and Jerry Olson Nature Preserve on 3 Mile Road, just south of the airport. You may have seen in the news that the Conservancy bought the golf course. Why? Because it's probably the most beautiful golf course in terms of if you like wetlands, if you like bald eagles, if you like brook trout in streams. This is an amazing property, and it was about to be developed into 275 condos. And we stepped in late 2018, early 2019, bought the golf course, bought the clubhouse, the pole barn, all the buildings, the parking lots, and the Olson family wrote the check for the entire acquisition. And they said, we want to give you time to dream big, Glenn. So we said, what are we going to do with these buildings? And light bulb went on. Why not have this be our permanent office? And let's make it more than that. Let's make it a conservation center. And let's partner with like-minded organizations. Let's partner with 7 schools within a 1.5 mile radius with over 4,000 kids that are now going to be connected through a Safe Routes to School that TART in East Bay Township and Norte are putting right through our property using some of the old fairways to traverse. So we're having our grand opening of the McMullen Family Conservation Center on July 15th for all of our supporters. So put that on your calendar. It's going to be a great moment. And I want to thank Tom and Debbie who are with us here, Tom and Debbie McMullen. How about a round of applause? So that concludes my program. And I just want to, again, thank the Elk Scucamonga Lake Association for your continued leadership. You guys are the point of the spear, or in this case, the broomstick. And the partnerships that we've forged over now 32 years will be long lasting. Our work is not done. But when you enjoy the beautiful water quality this summer, because Memorial Day is Monday, and that's the official start of summer, right? I'm sure there's going to be some people out on the water this weekend. But think about how precious it is to have lakes and streams of these qualities right here. And it's a place to treasure. And the reason it's so special is because people care and they give from the heart. So on that note, I want to thank you all, and God bless you. Thanks.